Okay, so let's dive in. We're looking at some really interesting sources today, all trying to get at this huge question. What does it actually mean to exist?
Right. And specifically, how does thinking, our thoughts fit into that whole picture?
Exactly. And the sources, they kick things off with a real classic, don't they?
They do. René Descartes. You can't really talk about this without mentioning, I think, therefore I am. It's probably one of the most famous lines in philosophy.
For sure. And the sources explain his angle, right?
Yeah.
That this act of thinking, the cogito, that was his rock, his proof that he existed.
Yeah, like if you're doubting or thinking, well, something must be doing the doubting or thinking, so you must exist. It was his way out of absolute doubt.
Makes sense. But our mission here, looking at this material, isn't just to restate Descartes. It's more about questioning that.
Exactly. The sources push us to ask, is thinking really the only way we know we exist? Or, is it even the main way? Is there maybe something deeper?
That's the big question these sources seem to pose. Can we even grasp existence without active thinking going on? According to this material, anyway.
And what's interesting is how they approach it. It's not just abstract theory at first. They point to, well, everyday experiences.
Yeah, things we all kind of recognize.
Like deep sleep. That's the main one they bring up, when you're really out cold, not dreaming, not thinking consciously, senses aren't really acting.
Total blankness, almost. Your mind isn't working through problems or anything.
But then you wake up, and you know you were there the whole time, right?
Yeah, you say, oh, I slept like a log, or I needed that sleep. There's a sense of continuity.
Exactly. The you that existed before sleep is the same you now. So the sources argue your existence didn't just switch off because the thinking part did.
That's a really strong point. And they also mention those little moments, when your mind just goes blank.
Oh yeah, like you're driving or walking, and suddenly you snap back and realize you haven't been consciously thinking about anything for the last, minute or two.
Yeah. Where did my thoughts go? But you didn't disappear in that gap.
Nope. You were still driving, still walking, still existing. The thought stream just paused for a bit.
So, okay, putting those together, the deep sleep, the mental blanks, what's the takeaway the sources are highlighting here?
Well, they argue pretty strongly that these experiences point towards existence being more fundamental than thought. Like, existence is the stage, and thought is just one actor that sometimes performs on it.
Ah, okay. So thought is an expression of existence, maybe, but not the source of it?
That seems to be the idea they're putting forward. It's not that thinking proves existence, but that existence allows for thinking, among other things.
Kind of like having a pulse is a sign of being alive. But being alive isn't only about having a pulse every single second.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. The sources are trying to suggest that maybe the I am actually comes before the I think.
Okay. Now, the sources also touch on how we usually perceive reality, right? Through our senses.
Right. We know a chair is there because we see it, feel it. Our whole understanding of the world is built on, sensory input, experience.
And they even mention imagination, how we take bits of experience, like seeing a horse and seeing a horn, and we mentally combine them into a unicorn.
Yeah, even imagination relies on building blocks from what we've perceived through the senses.
But then they contrast this with concepts that have, well, zero sensory basis.
Exactly. Ideas like nothingness or non-existence. You can't point to nothingness out there. You can't experience it with your senses.
So these are purely mental constructs, concepts born only in thought.
That's what the sources argue. And they use this to show the limits of thought.
How so?
Well, if thought can create concepts like non-existence that don't map onto sensory reality, it suggests that the world of thought and the world of what is aren't perfectly overlapping.
Okay, I see. So it reinforces the idea that existence, what is, might be bigger than just what thought can grasp or define.
Precisely. It kind of detaches existence from being purely a product or proof derived from thinking.
In exploring these limits, this idea of existence beyond just thinking, that leads the sources towards a very different perspective.
It does. They bring in some ideas from ancient Indian philosophy. Specifically, they mention the Upanishads.
Okay, and what's the view offered there? How do they describe the self?
Well, the gist from the sources is this. You aren't fundamentally your body. You aren't your mind, like the stream of thoughts. You aren't even your intellect or personality.
So what are you then, according to this view?
You're the consciousness, the awareness that's just there, always present. whether you're awake and thinking, dreaming, or even in that deep, thoughtless sleep we talked about.
So it loops back to the deep sleep example. That state isn't an absence of you, it's just an absence of thought within you.
Exactly. So it flips Descartes in a way. Instead of I think, therefore I am, it's more like the fundamental I am is always there, and thinking is just something that sometimes happens within that I am.
So the presence or absence of thoughts, it doesn't actually define whether you exist or not in this view.
Not in the most fundamental sense, no. The sources present this self as originating from existence itself, not from the act of thinking. Existence comes first.
Wow. Okay, so let's pull this all together. We have the challenges to Descartes from, sleep and blank moments. We have the idea that thought has limits. And then this Upanishadic view. What's the final picture the sources seem to paint?
Well, they seem to conclude that I think, therefore I am, while, understandable, isn't the deepest truth. It captures an experience, but not the foundation.
So what's the deeper truth they propose?
A potentially truer statement, they suggest, might be, I am whether there is thought or not.
I am whether there is thought or not.
That really shifts the ground, doesn't it?
It does. It moves the certainty away from the activity of the mind to the underlying state of being.
And the sources suggest that realizing this, really grasping this, is what opens up the mystery of it all. Yeah, it brings you right up against existence itself, not as an idea to be proven by thought, but as something, fundamental, something that just is.
Something maybe felt or intuited rather than intellectually confirmed.
Right, and it points towards this idea of a self that's beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond thought itself. And understanding that, the sources imply, is maybe the real journey.
So this deep dive, it's really taken us from that famous philosophical starting point all the way to considering existence as this fundamental ground, something independent of our thinking about it.
Yeah, it challenges you to look past the mental noise, maybe, to find what's underneath. It definitely reframes the whole question of who am I, or what is existence?
It really does. And it leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty profound thought from these sources to mull over.
What does it mean to really contemplate yourself, not just as the thinker, the voice in your head, but as that fundamental existence that's there, whether the thinking mind is active or completely silent?